Hello everyone, my name is ZCRGator and welcome back to Tier List Tuesday. Today's tier list might be another big one. It is a continuation of ranking every single generation of Pokemon, and we are kicking things off. I guess we're not kicking things off, but we are continuing with Generation 2. There are 100 Generation 2 Pokemon in the Gold, Silver, and Crystal games, which granted, I've never played Gold, Silver, Crystal games. I have played Heart Gold and Soul Silver, which I know is Generation 4, but it's based off of the Generation 2 Johto games. But with that being said, before we get into today's list, if you end up enjoying today's video, please feel free to leave a like, subscribe to the channel. It really helps your boy out. We are on the road to 300 subscribers. And comment down below, who is your favorite Generation 2 Pokemon and why? I would love to know down below in the comments. But with that being said, we have a normal tier list. It is an S through F tier. And the last one, with Generation 1, we decided to use the S tier for our top 10 favorite Pokemon and the F tier for our bottom 10 favorites. And I think this time around, I think I'm going to reserve the S tier for like a top 5 to 7 Pokemon as opposed to top 10, because there's only 100 to choose from this time around instead of 151. And I think the same might go for the F tier, although I will say, we might actually make the F tier our top 10 list because the Johto region includes a lot of baby Pokemon. And I think, me personally, I think the Johto region is a little lacking in the Pokedex. And a big reason why is because a lot of the times when I play through Heart Gold and Soul Silver, I always find myself using a lot more Kanto Pokemon than Johto Pokemon. I always feel like that's a problem. But at the same time, I've become more aware of that lately, and anytime I've played through Heart Gold or Soul Silver, I actually try to make it like a thing to use the Johto Pokemon. But with that being said, how about we just get things started, and we start this off with, I think, a solid starter trio. I think they're a little underrated, that being Chikorita, Cyndaquil, and Totodile. My personal favorite of the three is Cyndaquil, and I think I don't think it's quite top 5 for me, but I like Cyndaquil, I like Chikorita, and I like Totodile, but I like the other two a lot less. No, not a lot less because they're B tier, but I like Cyndaquil a lot more, and it might be an S tier Pokemon. We shall see how this list shapes out because we still got a lot to add. I already know, I think, 3 or 4 that are going to be in the top 5. I think, I don't think Cyndaquil makes the cut now that I'm thinking about it. But Cyndaquil is an incredible A tier Pokemon. I love Cyndaquil. Cyndaquil is so adorable. And I personally prefer Cyndaquil and Typhlosion and Quilava all to, Charizard. I'm a big Typhlosion guy. Typhlosion, I think, is really cool. I will say the Generation 6 models, like anything that's 3D model of Typhlosion, kind of didn't do him justice, man. I'm telling you what, Typhlosion kind of got the bad end of the stick there, but that's okay, because Typhlosion is still so cool in my mind, and I absolutely love using Typhlosion. I had so much fun using Typhlosion in my last playthrough of Soul Silver. My man's Krakatoa, I actually didn't name him Krakatoa, I named him Bobo, but he was out here hitting massive eruptions, and I loved it. It was super fun to use. But obviously is my favorite line of the 3 starters. Bayleaf, big Bayleaf fan. I think Bayleaf is really cool, and I actually have a soft spot for Meganium as well. Crocodile, I think, is pretty solid, and then big for Alligator. I like for Alligator. For Alligator's cool. For Alligator's pretty cool. I'm a big fan of Big Gator. Starter trio, I think they're a little bit more underrated than they should be, but at the same time, I kind of understand why, because it also depends on when you grew up. I grew up with the Platinum, like Diamond, Pearl, Platinum. I grew up with Sinnoh, and Sinnoh remakes, or not Sinnoh remakes, Sinnoh, that Generation 4 included Johto remakes, so I kind of got to like these Pokemon probably more than others. So that might be why I'm a little bit higher on them than other people are. But with that being said, I don't know. I think they're cool. I like them. I like their schemes. I like their colors. I like their designs. They're fun to use. Meganium is kind of actually hard to use. You are playing the game on hard mode if you actually choose Chikorita, because it's rough on the streets for you Chikorita users, man. It is rough, and Meganium doesn't really have the greatest moveset in the world either. But I like Meganium, man. Meganium's a cool Pokemon. So I think it's a really solid B tier. Up next, we have Sentret and Furret. And for me, Sentret is alright. I think it's pretty mid, but Furret, Furret is incredible. Dude, Furret, I don't know if y'all have seen the videos of Furret, and it's just continually walking until I think it was Diamond and Pearl Remixer announced, which it was like years that this poor Furret was being live streamed, just continuously walking. But at the same time, Furret's Furret. I love Furret. Furret is adorable. It is just, incredible Pokemon. It is an incredible Pokemon. Might not be the most fun to use in a playthrough, but Furret, I like Furret a lot. Furret's cool. Furret is really cool. Big fan of Furret. Up next, we got my man Hoot and Noctowl. For some odd reason, I don't know what compelled me to name my Hoot Boot, but this is Boot the Hoot and Boot the Noctowl. I don't like good old Boot. Boot is pretty cool. I like Boot and Noctowl. Noctowl's pretty cool too. I like Noctowl. They're fine. I guess in the last video I said I preferred Pidgeot over Hoot and Noctowl, and I did put Pidgeot in the C tier for the Kanto generation. But I think for Johto in specific, I'm gonna put Boot, Hoot and Noctowl both in the B tier, because I think in terms of comparing Johto, I think they're better here in the B tier than they are the C tier for me personally. So I think they're fine. Up next, we have the bug variations. I believe in Soul Silver, and probably in Silver, you get Lediba, Ledian. In Heart Gold and Gold, you get Spinarak, Ariados. I could be wrong about the Gold and Silver. I'm pretty sure Heart Gold is Spinarak, Ariados, and I'm pretty sure Soul Silver is Lediba, Ledian. Either way, I'm not really the biggest Lediba or Ledian enjoyer, and maybe I should be more of a Lediba, Ledian enjoyer, but I'm just not. Whereas Spinarak, I think it's fine, and I think Ariados is fine too. Ariados, from a design standpoint, is incredibly cool. It just doesn't really quite do it for me, but Ariados, fine. But Crobat, ooh, are we absolutely cooking with a Crobat, man. I'm telling you what, Crobat is so cool. Crobat's awesome. I love Crobat. Crobat is so much fun to use. It's super fast. It's a Pokemon that I probably use. It's kind of like, it's not quite to the Gyarados Magnezone level like I described in Generation 1's video. If you haven't gone to watch it, go watch it. I think it was a great video. But Crobat's fun to use, and it's one that I use often, so that's probably why I like it more. It's not the heaviest of hitters, but it's really fast and it's kind of more balanced. But Crobat, I think it's always fun. Plus, in the early games, you always have to have a flyer. And this is always one of the better flyers for me, I think personally. Like when you're playing through Diamond, Pearl, or Platinum, or you're playing through Heart Gold, Silver, it's really nice to have a Crobat. Even Black 2, White 2. Crobat's kind of a nice Pokemon to have in those games as well. But we must move on. And we're moving on to a Pokemon that I originally didn't like all too much, but I have grown to actually enjoy a lot more. That being Chinchou and Lantern. I really like the water electric typing. I think it's a really cool typing. For me, Chinchou, a solid B tier along with Lantern. I like Lantern a little bit more, not as much as Chikorita or Totodile, but I do like it more than Croconaw. But Lantern, Shucky, I'm a big fan of Big Shucky. I like Lantern and Chinchou. They're really cool Pokemon. Up next, we got Pichu. Pichu's an absolute classic. In terms of the baby Pokemon, Pichu's probably one of the better ones. And for me, Pichu probably goes right in between Chikorita and Totodile. I like Totodile a little bit more, but Pichu, I mean, it's adorable. It's a little Pichu. Like, come on, he's just a little dude. So he's an adorable little guy. Up next, we have Cleffa and Igglybuff. I really do not care for either of these two. Like, I just don't care. I honestly forgot Igglybuff existed. So, Cleffa, I do remember. Igglybuff, I have no memory of, to be honest. And again, I'm a Fub enjoyer. I like Jigglypuff. Wigglytuff, Igglybuff, they don't exist in my head. But Fub, the Jigglypuff, incredible. We are Fub enjoyers here. So, and then we also have Togepi. And Togepi, if it didn't have the anime carry in it, it would be so low on this list. But the anime absolutely carries Togepi in my mind. It's got to be an A-tier Pokemon. Dude, Togepi is just, it was just so adorable in the anime. And it's just, yeah, Togepi's adorable. Togetic, a Pokemon that I think I would have had lower on this list a month ago. but I've done a playthrough through Pokemon Platinum, and I thoroughly enjoyed using my man's Benedict, the Togetic, so much to the point where I think I'm going to put it right here next to Pichu, because I enjoyed it. Togekiss, obviously, I think is the best of the line, and Togekiss, if it was in the Johto region, might be in the S tier for me personally, but it's not in the Johto region, so I'm gonna be fine. I'm fine putting Togetic here in B tier, but Togetic, really cool Pokemon, or Togekiss, really cool Pokemon. Togetic, pretty fun. Togepi is just adorable. So up next we got Natu and Xatu. I think they're both mid. I probably would have put them a little lower, but for some reason, it's just the name for me is kind of funny, so I just kind of like putting them there. It just feels nice to put them there, so they're gonna go there, right in the mid tier. But Natu, Xatu, they're fine. Like, they exist. They're cool. They're mid. They're kind of mid, but they're cool. Xatu can read the future, though. That's kind of cool. He can kind of predict the future. That's kind of sick. Up next, we got Mareep, Flaffy, Ampharos. I think Ampharos is an S tier Pokemon for me in the Johto region. Like, we'll see, because I said I want to make it top 5. I might make it more of a top 7 list, so we'll see. But I really like Ampharos. Ampharos is a fun Pokemon to use in playthroughs. Mareep and Flaffy, I think both are B tier for me, but Ampharos is so cool. I've actually never used Mega Ampharos in a playthrough, so I don't know. I'll probably rank it, because I did rank it in the Kanto one and the Generation 1. I did rank their Mega Evolutions, and this does include the Mega Evolution with it. I will put it in B tier, like next to the other 3 for now. It's one of those where I never used a Mega Ampharos. I would love to use Mega Ampharos. It gains the Dragon typing, which is weird, but kind of sick. I kind of like it. So, but Ampharos, I like Ampharos. Ampharos is so much fun to use. So I'm a big Ampharos enjoyer. It's tough to boot up a playthrough of Heart Gold and Soul Silver and not use Ampharos, because you get Mareep so early on, and Ampharos is what you get at level 30, I think, which is kind of sick. Plus, it has like a base special attack stat total of like 115. And he's a little bulkier than I always give it credit for. So, Ampharos, cool. I'm a big Ampharos enjoyer. Up next, we have Blossom. And Blossom was one a couple of months ago when I did my Soul Silver playthrough. I actually chose to use a Blossom for a little while, because I've actually never used one, and it was enjoyable, actually. I enjoyed it a lot more than I was expecting to, and because of that, I think I'm going to put Blossom right in front of Hoot Hoot. I think it's a nice B-tier Pokemon. It's more fun to use than I originally thought it was. Up next, we have Marill and Azumarill, and I think Marill has a pretty cool design, and Azumarill's alright, you know? I think Marill for me is B tier, and I think Azumarill for me personally is top of C tier. It's like top of the mid tier for me. But they're cool, they're fine. Like, every now and then I'll use an Azumarill on a playthrough. I would prefer it has huge power. If you get one that's not really huge power, Azumarill, it's kind of tough to use, and it did get the added fairy typing, which kind of boosted it for me a little bit, so, but it's fine. It's completely fine. Up next, we got the fake tree, my man's Sudowoodo. Sudowoodo in the anime was always adorable. I liked Sudowoodo. He's just a good little dude, and he was just trying his hardest to be a good Pokemon for Brock. And I like Sudowoodo. And Sudowoodo, he's pretty cool. I think Sudowoodo is a very nice B tier Pokemon for me personally. So I am a fan of Sudowoodo. Very nice, very cool. Up next, Politoed. I like me some Politoed. Dude, Politoad's so cool, man. Right next to the Gator. I like the Gator a little bit more than Politoed, but Politoed, I just like him. He's just a big old toad, a big old frog, and it's hard to go against the frog, man. I like the frog, dude. Super good on rain teams, by the way. It's kind of fun watching competitive Pokemon and people use Politoed in those, at least in the draft leagues that I would watch growing up. So, Politoed, what can I say? Pretty cool. Up next, we got Hoppip, Skiploom, and Jumpluff. Growing up, again, not my favorite line in the world, but when I got older, I started to enjoy them a lot more. So, Hoppip for me, B tier. Skiploom, more of a C tier. Jumpluff, an A tier. I don't know what it is about Jumpluff, because sometimes I kind of struggle using Jumpluff in-game, but Jumpluff is just cool. Like, I had really fun time back when there's like a month craze of Poke Rogue. The first playthrough I actually won, I used a jump pluff on, and the reason why is because it was so insane, not insanely fast, but it was pretty fast, and I could throw up a leech seed real quick, and it did the work that I needed it to, and it was an incredible utility player. And because of that, I kind of started liking it a lot more. And it's kind of how I treat it in any playthrough I do now, where it's kind of more of like a utility player that helps set up the rest of the team. And sometimes you just need valuable role players, and that's what Jump Pluff does pretty well. It's a very valuable role player. With that being said, very solid A tier for you. Up next, oh, I love this little dude, man. This is one of my favorites, man. I've really grown to enjoy Mr. Apom. Oh, I love me some Apom. Apom's just a monkey little chimpanzee, and I like him. I love Apom just because. I mean, one, I am a very big fan of monkeys. So, like any type of monkey, gorilla, bonobo, gibbon, chimpanzee, orangutan, mandrills, dude, monkeys, lemurs, like monkeys, they're incredible. I love monkeys. And Apom, that's like one of the ones that if I could have like a Pokemon in real life, Apom's like one of the choices I'd probably have. Not the top choice. Eevee would probably be my top choice, or a Turtwig, or a Mudkip. But Apom would be up there. It would absolutely be up there. So, but Apom, I love Apom. I love Apom so much, and I actually do enjoy using it. It's fun to use. Ambipom is fun to use too. We'll talk about that once we get to Generation 4. Apom's Apom. Like, I love Apom. So, Apom's incredible. Up next, we have Sunkern and Sunflora. I believe Sunkern, is it the worst overall of any Pokemon, like, ever created, like, base stat totals when you add them all up? I think it's the worst one of all time. With that being said, I don't know. They're fine. They exist. They're there. I'm not really excited to ever use one. I'm not jumping for joy. I'd probably prefer some Flora. Actually, probably prefer these two over Letty and Lettyba, but like, I don't know. I don't think they're F tier, but like, I don't think they're C tier either. I think they're nice in D tier. They're like below average. They're fine. They exist. Like I said, they're just kind of there. They're kind of there. So, but yeah, I think they're solid D tier Pokemon. Up next, we have Yanma, and Yanma's fine. I think it is perfectly mid. Yanmega makes Yanma better. I think if we never got Yanmega, Yanma would probably be in the D tier for me. But Yanma's fine. It's a nice dragonfly Pokemon, and I like dragonflies. I think they're really cool. I prefer Yanmega, but Yanma's pretty solid. I actually think I'm going to put it at the top of my C tier. I think it's the top of the mid tier for me, personally. Up next, we got the Whoopie Boy. We love the Whoopie Boy. We got Whoopie Boy and Quagsire. Whoopie Boy's A tier. Like, there's just no ifs, ands, or buts about it. We all love some Whooper. And Whooper's he's just an adorable little dude. Are you kidding me? Love me some Whooper. And I like me some Quagsire too. Not as much as Totodile, which is kind of funny that Totodile's starting to become. I guess I actually probably prefer Togetic over Quagsire. But Quagsire's fun. I like Quagsire. He's really big and derpy, and I like that. And he's a water ground type, which is, pretty sick typing. But not as much as the Whoopie Boy. We like the Whoopie Boy here. So, up next, we have the Evolutions, Espeon and Umbreon. Espeon goes all the way up right behind Typhlosion. Big Espeon enjoyer. Espeon growing up was my favorite Evolution. It is no longer my favorite Evolution because Umbreon goes ahead of it. It's so funny. Umbreon was my least favorite Evolution growing up, and Espeon was my favorite, which crazy that they both came from the same generation. I disliked one so much more than the other, and now the one that I disliked the most is actually probably my favorite Evolution of like the 6th. So I like Umbreon a lot. Umbreon, I was sleeping on it. I was absolutely sleeping on it. I did not understand the value, which is hilarious because growing up I always used so many defensive Pokemon because Steel typing is my favorite Pokemon. But I did not understand the value of Umbreon. I did not understand how defensively bulky it is and an absolute beast that it can be. Plus, it's got a clean design. I mean, Umbreon's a great design. Not to mention the shiny Umbreon, where all the yellow on it turns to light blue, and it's just, ooh! It's amazing. It's incredible. It's incredible. I mean, you're working with what? 100, 110 base defense stat total, and it's much better in its special defense because I believe its special defense is like 130. Sure, it doesn't really hit like a truck, but again, it's one of those incredible utility players that really boosts the rest of the team, and if used correctly, oh, it's an absolute MVP. So Umbreon, incredibly cool. One of my favorite Johto Pokemon. Up next, we have Murkrow. Murkrow. And I like Murkrow. Murkrow's cool. I'm a fan of Murkrow. I think Murkrow gets to sit right next to Totodile. So, but Murkrow, fun. I've always enjoyed using Murkrow. It's always fun to use. Diamond and Pearl and Platinum. I guess not really Platinum because you can't really find a Murkrow in Platinum, but Diamond, not even Pearl. You can't find it in Pearl, but in Diamond playthroughs, it's really fun to use. It does get a little tough to use because by the time you're finally able to evolve it, you find like that's when you get to, I think, the Galactic base after you beat the 7th gym leader. So you like holding on to a Murkrow for forever. And Honchkrow is awesome. I love Honchkrow. But Murkrow on its own, I'm not super opposed to using Murkrow for that long either. And I think it's good enough to use for that long. So I like Murkrow. Murkrow's cool. I'm a big fan. Up next, we got Slowking. And Slowking, I like the bro more than I like the king. Slowking's alright. I'd probably put him just ahead of Quagsire. I think he's cool. Like, I remember him from, Pokemon 2000, where the Slowking would talk and yada yada yada, but I don't know. Like, the one singular time I've used a Slowking, I thought it was pretty alright. I thought I had fun with it. So, Slowking, pretty alright. Up next, we got Miss Drevis. And Miss Drevis, I think it's one that I'm coming around to a lot more because growing up, it wasn't really my favorite. And then the more I kind of, started playing games a lot more, at least Pokemon games more. And the more I thought about, like, wow, maybe I should use different Pokemon. And I like Miss Magius a good bit, but Miss Drevis, I think, is alright too. I prefer Murkrow and Honchkrow to Miss Magius and Miss Drevis. But Miss Drevis is still pretty solid. I'd probably prefer it over Pichu or Chikorita, but it depends on the given day. But Miss Drevis is fun to use. I haven't really had bad experiences ever using it. I think it's a solid design. Although I probably prefer Miss Magius. If Miss Magius was in this generation, it'd probably be in the A tier. So, but Miss Drevis, pretty solid. Up next, we got Unknown, and Unknown should be in the F tier, but it's not going to be, because for me, it's going to go in the C tier. And the reason why is because I think the unknown elements of Unknown are kind of sick. I always thought it was more of a mystery. Of course, you grow up and you realize it's not really all that. But, like, I don't know, it's the childlike wonder of knowing what Unknown could have been. And I think that was kind of cool. Not to mention, growing up, my little brother was a big fan of Unknown, specifically Unknown F, and you call it FEF, and I don't know why. It was just like the funniest thing to me growing up, and because of that, I've always had more of an attachment to Unknown, because I think Unknown's cooler because of that. So if you have specifically the FEF, the F Unknown, it would go in A tier, but Unknown on its own, probably solid mid tier, probably solid mid Pokemon, C tier. Up next, we got Wobbuffet, and Wobbuffet is awesome. I like Wobbuffet. Anime Wobbuffet is so cool. It's kind of tough to figure out how to use Wobbuffet in-game, but Anime Wobbuffet, like, alone, I think puts it really high for me, because Wobbuffet, man. Wobbuffet. It's fun. Dude, Wobbuffet's a fun Pokemon, so you always have to have fun with this. So, up next, we have Girafarig. And Girafarig is one that I still think is kind of mid. It did get Farigiraf, which is cool. I'm actually glad it evolved, but I'm still not fully there yet with Girafarig, at least not yet. But I could get there later if I actually choose to use it in like a playthrough. So I've used it once growing up, like doing Pokemon Pearl, I think, but it's fine. Like, I think it's perfectly fine. I do really like the tail on the end because it looks like a chain chomp, and I love chain chomps. So, like, that's like one of my favorite things in Mario. So, Girafarig, pretty solid. I guess if I said pretty solid, it'd be B tier. It's good. It's like meh. It's pretty meh. Up next, we got Pineco and Fortress. Hey, my man's Pineco going right ahead of the Wobbuffet, and my main man Fortress hitting them all the way up top at S tier. I love me some Fortress. Are you kidding me? This is my third favorite Pokemon of all time. Dude, he's just Fortress, man. Like, so my Fortress, I always nicknamed them Boy because for some reason I always specifically find male Fortresses. I don't know why. I guess Pinecos, I should say. But you know, Fortress blows up. And way back in the day, probably like 2015, 2016, when the whole boy meme was relevant, was when I really started like using Fortress. And I did a specific playthrough of Pokemon Ruby where I randomized it. And I think, I don't know what, I think whatever Zigzagoon's like numerical, like binary code got rerouted to Fortress. So I encountered Fortress on almost every single route. And normally I wouldn't have thought much of it, but this is the first ever like randomized playthrough I've ever done. The Fortress, I also randomized special abilities, and Fortress in that playthrough had Arena Draft. So I had an entire box full, because I decided to do a Nuzlocke of it, and this wasn't like a hardcore Nuzlocke. I was able to heal during battle, but I did a Nuzlocke of it, and I had an entire box full of unfortunate souls that were out of a box can hold 32 Pokemon. I think out of the 32, 30 of them all got taken out by Arena Drop Fortress that clicked Explosion or Self-Destruct. And in Generation 3, Explosion and Self-Destruct, it does this cool funky thing where not only is it like base like 150, or is I think it's 250 attack for 200 for Self-Destruct, 250 for Explosion, but it does this thing where it takes your defensive stat and it halves it. So not only does it do a ton of damage, but then it does even more damage because it makes you even less defensive towards it. And yeah, it was tough. Now, the way that I countered it later on was I had my own Fortress. So, and that Fortress I named Boy, because every single time I lost a Pokemon, I would stare, I would point at the screen, hit the boy, as you know, a Fortress would take out another poor soul. But when you have your own Fortress, you can take out poor souls with your own Fortress. It was a lot more fun that way. I never clicked the Self-Destruct Explosion button in that playthrough because I'm not going to lose my Fortress. But Boy put in the work. And I mean, Boy was he's one of my favorites because of it. And that playthrough made Fortress one of my favorites. Plus, out of like the 5 shiny Pokemon, 6 shiny Pokemon I've ever encountered, I got a shiny Fortress and Omega Ruby, so like, Boy's incredible. I love me some Fortress. There was a playthrough one time, another randomized playthrough, where I ran into a Regirock that got +6 on defense and attack because it kept cursing, and it had Arena Trap, and it's a Pokemon battle, so I had to cut my losses. I saw what was happening. And where it's like one of the trainers in Mount Pyre threw it out. So in order to keep progressing through said Nuzlocke, I was going to lose the Nuzlocke if I let any of my other Pokemon attempt to even try to hurt Regirock, because it was at half health. And, you know, +6 Regirock's already most defensively thing ever. And most of my Pokemon on that team were like offensive heavy, not special attacking, but physically attacking. And yeah, it was a problem. It was a massive problem, and I didn't know how to deal with said massive problem. But Boy happened to be out, and I had to click the old self-destruct button, and I got a crit. So I think the crit bypasses any of your like your buffs. So I got incredibly lucky that Boy took out the Regirock and saved the run. But man, at a cost, it was so sad. But I had to click the Boy button, and it worked. So, but Fortress, I love Fortress. Incredible Pokemon. Up next, we got Dunny the Dunsparce. And Dunny's a Pokemon that, as of Generation 9, I have come around to, because it used to be like one of the bottom tiers for me. But Generation 9 kind of, I saw the Dunsparce, and I was like, oh, that's actually kind of sick. And now I want to use it. And actually using it in that game was a lot more fun than I thought it would be. it's a solid B tier Pokemon for me. I think it's right behind Blossom. I had so much more fun using Dunsparce before I even got to Dunsparce. And maybe in Generation 4, it probably wouldn't be as fun to use. Or Generation 2, it might not be as fun to use. But when I used it in Generation 4, I liked it. I enjoyed it. I had so much fun with it. Up next, we have Gligar, the flying scorpion Pokemon, I think. Gligar, for those of you who have never seen the Generation, what is it? Generation 3, it's the 6th movie in the anime, the Jirachi movie. At the very end of the movie, you get to the credits, and they show all of these Pokemon, like constellations, and I remember watching this like way long ago. And I have this vivid memory of like trying to guess all the constellations. I got a couple of them. I think there's like a Tailo one. There's like a Machoke and holding a Viper one or whatever. But there was one constellation that I looked at, and I was like, man, does that look like a Gligar? And I was like, why in the world would they ever choose a Gligar constellation? I was like, what am I thinking? Gligar is not even that popular. Plus it's Generation 2. And it wasn't a Gligar. I think it was Kyogre. But the very next constellation they showed, I think I remember saying, oh, I think that's a Tailo. It was a Gligar. And I was like, there's no way! I was like, no! I was like, the last one looked like a Gligar. That doesn't even look like a Gligar. I was like, second of all, you actually chose to make a Gligar constellation. I was like, I could not believe it. I was utterly baffled. I was shocked, bamboozled. And I remember that. I don't know why I remember that so vividly, but I remember it. Either way, I kind of like Gligar. I still have a soft spot for Gligar because I don't know, it's Gligar, man. Plus Ash got a Gligar, and you know, I like Ash's Gligar. He's a fun little dude. He was a fun little dude. So Gligar, fun little guy. Up next, the greatest Pokemon that has ever been created. There's no debate. There's absolutely no debate about this. Steelix is the greatest Pokemon that has ever been created. It's the entire reason why I even got into the franchise, because there's an episode of Pokemon anime where Brock returns to his gym. It's like a Battle Frontier season 9. Brock returns to his gym, and he comes to find that his Onix has evolved into a Steelix. And I saw Steelix, that was like one of the, obviously Pikachu was like the first Pokemon I ever seen, but like Steelix is one of the very, very, very first Pokemon I ever have memory of. And I go, oh my god, is that the coolest thing my 6-year-old mind has ever seen in my entire life, outside of like maybe the Incredible Hulk. So I was like, this is incredible, I love this. And then, like a month or two later, they aired the commercials for Pokemon Diamond and Pokemon Pearl. And I go, no way, the TV show's actually a video game? This is the best day of my life. So I remember asking my mother, and I was like, hey, mother, can you please get me this game? And she surprised me with it one day after school. So I'm playing through Pokemon Diamond, and here I am with a level 100 Onix, because I couldn't figure out how to evolve him, because I knew you had to evolve him, and he got to level 100, and he didn't grow any more levels after 100. I was like, what? I was like, how do you get Steelix? I didn't find out until like 5 years later that you have to trade an Onix with a metal coat in order to get Steelix. But fortunately for me and Pokemon Diamond and Pearl, you can find Steelix in Iron Island. Aren't I so lucky that the one game that I happened to play, where I specifically wanted that guy in particular, you can encounter him in the wild. Oh my goodness. That's just like incredibly lucky. Incredibly lucky. So, but Steelix, my mains man, Steelix. Greatest Pokemon ever created, objectively speaking. There's no debate. You can't change my mind. It's just incredible. It's incredible. It's my favorite of all time. That's my guy, man. My main man, stainless steel Steelix. There's no beating him. There's no beating the Steelix. Plus, it's got such a clean shiny. I mean, the man turned gold. He said it's time to go prime time and go into my golden era, baby. Steelix is awesome. Steelix is awesome. Steel type is best type. He's awesome. He's awesome. Up next, we have Schnabel and Granbull. Granbull! I was never a Granbull person. Never a Granbull person. I don't know what it is about Granbull, and I don't know what it is about Snubbull. I just don't vibe with them, man. I do not vibe with them. I will say there was the Johto anime with the Snubbull that always followed Team Rocket around and purposely would try to bite Meowth's tail. Was kind of funny. But besides that, I don't really have much love for Snubble. So, sorry, Snubble. I do feel bad for you. Up next, we got Quillfish. And Quillfish is cool. Like, it's fine. I don't know. I think it's pretty mid. I prefer Hisuian Quillfish and, more importantly, Overquill. Overquill's incredible, by the way. Quillfish is pretty mid. Pretty mid. Up next, we got an absolute super clean Pokemon here. I mean, we are talking absolute clean design. Just give you some Scizor all day, any day. Mega Evolutions of Scizor, I'm actually not as high on, which is funny. Because I'm going to count, like, this Mega Steelix, I'm going to count Steelix and Mega Steelix as one in the S tier. But I'm actually just going to put Mega Scizor, I think, in the B tier, personally. I think I'm going to put it right behind Murkrow. But, dude, Scizor is so clean. Are you kidding me? 1, 2, 3, 4. I guess we're doing 6. We'll see. I wanted it to be like a top 5, but I might make it more like a top 7 or 8 because I do kind of like Ampharos more than Crobat, like enough to put it in its own tier. So it might actually be a top 10. We'll see. But for now, I want to leave them in the S tier because I really like Apeom, and I really like Ampharos, and I like me some Scizor. Like, Scizor it's an S tier Pokemon for me, at least in the Johto region, but it might actually just be an S tier in general, because it is super clean. Do I like it more than Umbreon? Because Umbreon is one of those that I've really grown to liking lately, like in the past couple of years. So one of the few shiny Pokemon I have, by the way, too. So that's probably why I like it. Because in Legends Arceus, the first playthrough I ever did, I heard the little shiny sparkle. And I go, oh my god, what was that? And I just saw a shiny Eevee just sitting right behind me, and I caught it, and it evolved into an Umbreon, and it's just I used it on the team, and I absolutely enjoyed it. And I think that's why I'm gonna keep it ahead of Scizor for now. But Scizor, incredible Pokemon. Up next, we got big ol' Shuckle. Don't mess with the... well, I guess you could say the other word, but I'm not going to say the other word. But, hey, my mains man, Shuckle, it's pretty mid. He's got me fine. Shuckle's fine. Like, Shuckle's Shuckle. Like, he's just shuckling, man. He's shuckling it up. So, up next, we got Heracross. I like me some Heracross, man. Heracross is awesome, dude. Clean design, really fun Pokemon to use. I've always enjoyed any playthrough I've had of like getting the chance of using a Heracross, whether that be in Platinum or in Heart Gold or Soul Silver. And I've mainly used it more in Heart Gold, Soul Silver, especially for the Whitney fight, because it's actually very convenient to have Heracross for that fight. But Heracross, really fun Pokemon to use. I love the design. Clean shiny, by the way. Like that pink shiny. Again, another Pokemon that I've gotten incredibly lucky using as a shiny Pokemon. I have also used way more than 5 or 6 shiny Pokemon now that I'm starting to really like delve deeper into my mind and recall things. But another shiny Pokemon that was awesome. I love the pink, so really love using it. Up next, I guess we got Mega Heracross. For me, Mega Heracross, I was not a fan of. Like, I'm so like off the design, man. Like, it's one of my least favorite Mega Evolutions, and a lot of it has to do with design. I don't know, man. I just look at him, and I know he's supposed to be like a big, I think it's like, what, Rhino Beetle or something? Some type of beetle, but it just didn't vibe. Just didn't vibe with me. So, but either way, we must move on to the Dark and Ice type Sneasel. I think Sneasel is a very solid B tier Pokemon. I prefer Weavile, and I'm starting to prefer Hisuian Sneasel and Sneasler more to Sneasel, but Sneasel's cool. I actually like Sneasel's pretty solid Pokemon. I'm glad it got an evolution. I'm really glad it got a Weavile. So, but Sneasel, pretty cool. Teddiursa, up next, we got a little teddy bear. Teddiursa, I think, is solid C tier, whereas Ursaring for me is more of a B tier Pokemon. I'll put it right. Yeah, it feels right for Ursaring. He's just a big bear. So, and then we got, for last generation, we got Right on These Nuts, and now we got Slugma These Nuts. So hey, Slugma, Mr. Young Gooper himself. Where are we putting you? I'm feeling right next to Gligar. My car go fast. You could go right next to Slugma too. I think I prefer Slugma ever so slightly to Macargo, but I like them. They're just two little derpy fire types that I always thought were in Hoenn. I always thought they were Generation 3 Pokemon, because you can't find them in Heart Gold, Soul Silver unless you talk to my mains man Primo Primo A. Primo sets you up with either a Mareep, a Wooper, or a Slugma. And I always chose the Slugma option because, you know, I could find a Wooper and I could find a Mareep on the very next route once I get past Falconer. But young Gooper, I'm not finding him until I get to Kanto. Baffling that you have to go to Kanto to find him. That's where you find him. So, but young Gooper, I like him. I've always had fun with Slugma anytime I've used it on any team. So, up next, we got Swinub and Piloswine. I'm really happy they got Mamoswine, because Mamoswine is awesome. Swinub, for me, I think is a solid N to B tier, and same with Piloswine. I prefer Piloswine. No, I prefer Swinub, but Piloswine and Swinub, they're cool. They're alright. I don't think they're mid, I think they're better than mid. So, but they're not like, they're like close to it, but they're above average. So, I like where they're at. Up next, we got Corsola. Corsola's a Pokemon that I've never used on playthrough. I would like to use it on playthrough, based kind of more off of design and just watching it from the anime that because Misty had one. I think it's a C tier. I think it's kind of mid, but like I could change my opinion if I ever got to use one on a playthrough. But Corsola is like one of those Pokemon that I've just never really run into, at least anytime I've ever done a randomized playthrough of any game. I don't know. Corsola hasn't been used all that often for me yet. But you know, that could change. That could change at some point in the future. So, but we shall see. Up next, we have Remoraid. This man, I think, is so incredibly funny because he just looks like he's a gun. So, I've always imagined someone just holding up a Remoraid and go. And because of that, Remoraid gets into the B tier for me. And then you also got Octillery, which is not at all, absolutely not at all, what I thought Remoraid would evolve into. I like Octillery though. Like Octillery is actually funny enough. Octillery as of late has reminded me of a show called The Boys. And if you have ever seen The Boys, you would know that one of the best characters, I mean, he's not really one of the best characters, but I think he's one of the funnier meme characters, and that's why I like him more, because of all the memes that have been created about him. The Deep. I think The Deep is incredible in context of the show. Obviously, you know, if a real person like The Deep existed, which sadly there are people in real life that are like The Deep, which is not good. You don't want those type of people. But The Deep in the show is incredible. And I'll just say he's a big fan of octopus. So he likes octopi. Yeah, we'll leave it at that. So I think it's funnier now. I think Octillery is funnier now because that's what Octillery reminds me of. So, woo! Up next, we got Delibird, Mr. Shady Penguin himself. Delibird, if Shady Penguin, the YouTuber, did not exist, it would probably be more of a D tier for me. But because Shady Penguin exists and has provided me with so many countless hours of content and just amazingness, and great guy. Delibird, because of that, I've grown to like Delibird a lot more. And Delibird, it gets to sit right next to Hoot, I think, because Delibird's cool. Delibird's actually a lot cooler than I always give it credit for. So, good for you, Delibird. Up next, oh, I despise this thing, Mr. Mantine. That's his cry, by the way. You throw out a Mantine, it goes, That's what it does. That's what it does. That's the cry of a Mantine. D tier. Like, I've even tried, I've used it one time, and I didn't really enjoy my time using it, so I kind of got beef with Mantine. I don't know what, I actually don't know when the beef started, but for some reason, I've just always had this beef with Mantine. Not F tier, it's not F tier, it's not worse than the 4 in F tier, but I just got some beef with it. I don't know why I got beef with him, but I got beef with Mantine, and so therefore, it's got to go there. It has to go in the D tier. Up next, we have the Steel Bird Skarmory. What an awesome Pokemon this thing is, man. It goes right past the monkey, but Skarmory is incredible. What an absolute of a Pokemon this is. I think, and it's funny because I think, what are these the only 3 Steel type in the Johto region? Skarmory, Scizor, and Fortress. And, you know, I'm the biggest Steel type Pokemon fan. Of course they're going to be in my S tier. They're all great. They're all great Pokemon. And it's kind of crazy that Skarmory is like my least favorite of the, 1, 2, 3, 4. My bad, 4. But Skarmory, man, is so cool. I also thought this was a Ruby, Sapphire, Emerald Pokemon because you can still find it in the Johto region, which I actually like about Skarmory is the fact that you can find it in the Johto region. But anytime I've ever done a playthrough, it's always been used in like Omega Ruby, Alpha Sapphire, or Ruby, Sapphire, Emerald because those are easier to find it in that game. But Skarmory is awesome. Just a cool, clean design, just awesome Pokemon. Super defensive Pokemon too, but not the fastest, which makes sense. It's a gigantic steel bird. But I mean, Skarmory is just, it's fun to use, man. I've always enjoyed using Skarmory in playthroughs, so I'm a big Skarmory fan. Up next, we have Houndour and Houndoom. And I think Houndour, for me, is probably a very solid B tier Pokemon that gets put right ahead, probably ahead of Chikorita and Pichu and Misdreavus, right next to Quagsire. That feels right. Whereas Houndoom, I'm a big fan of Houndoom, man. Houndoom gets to sit right next to Espeon. And it would also seem that our, let me change the music up super quickly because my Heart Gold Soul Silver playthrough ran out. So we'll do this. But Houndoom, I've always enjoyed using Houndoom in playthroughs. Again, another Pokemon that actually upsets me that you can't find in the Johto region. But Platinum exists, and I've used Houndoom and Platinum like 3 or 4 different times, because that's like the go-to fire type for me, especially if you don't have the ability to trade in Platinum. Because if you have the ability to trade, I always kind of opted for Magmortar if I didn't choose Chimchar. But Houndoom is awesome, man. I've always enjoyed using Houndoom in games, so big Houndoom fan. So. Actually, we should also rank the Mega Evolution, and Mega Houndoom is such a cool Mega Evolution too. I actually like the design even more than Houndoom, so I'd still prefer Typhlosion, but man, Mega Houndoom, sick Mega. It is a sick Mega Evolution. So Kingdra is up next, and I'm a big fan of Kingdra. I think Kingdra is awesome Pokemon, man. I'd probably put it right behind Houndoom, but Kingdra is I think that was a really needed evolution of Seadra. And plus it's the ace Pokemon of Claire, the 8th gym leader, which I always thought was pretty cool. And is it Juan in Emerald that has Kingdra as well as his ace? So the fact that it's kind of like the ace of 2 different 8th gym leaders in 2 different games is kind of sick. But Kingdra, man, Kingdra's fun to use. It's one of those where you need the capabilities to I think you have to trade it. I think you have to give a Seadra a Dragon Scale and then trade it in order to evolve it. So if you have the capabilities, that's how you get it. And it's always been kind of the more tough Pokemon to attain. Obviously, later generations gotten a little easier. But anytime I've used a Kingdra, I've always had a blast using it. I think it's a great Pokemon. Love the design of Kingdra. It's fun to use. So Dragon type, kind of weird. But like, I'm fine with it. I'm fine with it. I guess you needed a dragon in the Johto region, so there's your dragon. So up next, we got Phanpy and Donphan. I like little Phanpy, man. Little Phanpy's just an adorable little elephant, and it's just just an adorable little elephant, little guy. I guess you go right ahead of. I think big old Feraligatr gets to sit at top of the B tier, but Phanpy for me, right behind. And then Donphan, I also enjoyed Donphan too. Donphan not as much, probably like right behind Murkrow for me, but Donphan is pretty cool too. I've always enjoyed using Donphan, and Donphan's always, I always feel like I underestimate it more than I should, because it ends up always kind of putting in work anytime I've used a Donphan. Although, really slow, which I'm kind of sad that he's as slow as he is, because I always thought he was a lot faster. At least anytime I've seen him in the anime, he's just rolling around so fast, and he has like a base speed stat of like 50. But my mans can eat a hit. I'm just saying, he can eat a hit and he can dish a hit out, as long as it's not on the special side. If he can't eat a special attacking move, but he can eat a physical attacking move. So, but Donphan, cool Pokemon. I like Donphin. Up next, we got Porygon 2. And I think Porygon 2 is a solid B Pokemon. B tier Pokemon. Probably right ahead of Slowking for me. I think Porygon 2, my man eats hits for days, and a much needed evolution for Porygon. It's cool. He's just a little cyber duck, and I kind of like the cyber duck. So I think Porygon Z is my favorite of the three, but Porygon 2, pretty cool. Up next, we have Stantler. And I've grown to like Stantler more because of Legends Arceus, but even with that being said, I still kind of view Stantler more as kind of like a mid Pokemon. It's alright, it exists, you know? It exists, and I think I'm okay with it existing. It's cool. It's cool. Weirdeer? I actually like Weirdeer. Weirdeer's pretty cool. So, but Stantler, it's fine. And then, of course, we have the autist Pokemon, Smeargle. And Smeargle, you know, he's out here sketching your moveset, and if you happen to have a Darkrai, he will sketch Dark Void, and he'll have to be nerfed, and somehow he always finds himself competitively viable every, other 4 years. At some point, in whatever generation of game he's in, he'll find himself in the competitive scene. With that being said, I think it's kind of mid. I don't know. I think he's pretty mid. I mean, I kind of want to put him in the D tier, but I think he's mid. I think he's more mid than he is D tier. So, Smeargle, C. Up next, we got Tyrogue and Hitmontop. Hitmontop for me is, I think, the very bottom of B tier. I think it's just a bit above, mid, but it's not super above mid. And then Tyrogue is just, he's kind of mid. He exists. I'll probably put him ahead of Teddy Ursa, but not too far ahead. So, and then of course the other baby Pokemon, Smoochum. I don't really care for Smoochum. Elekid, though, this is one of the few baby Pokemon that I actually I like a good bit. Elekid, man, I like the design. I like the attitude. My man's is ready for a fight. It is on sight with Elekid. And then, of course, you got Magby. And I actually like Magby, too. I think Magby, weirdly, Magby and Elekid, because they both can get Thunder Punch and Fire Punch, they're actually a lot more easier to use than I always think they are, although I think they evolve at level 30. So, but Magby's alright. I'd probably put it right ahead. Yeah, right here. That feels like a good spot for you, Magby. But yeah, they're fine. And then of course, the demon cow that Whitney has, that being Miltank. Miltank, man. Nightmares, absolute nightmares of this Pokemon, and because of that, I don't think I could put it. I actually I don't know, man. Miltank is a big cow. It just, I think it's still a nice B tier Pokemon though. I still think I can still come around to liking Miltank, even if it has emotionally scarred me, but not as much as these two. Yeah, that feels right. I think that feels right, because I prefer Miltank over Quillfish. I think there's a tier divider there, and I do think I prefer it, which is kind of crazy. There's so many in B tier, so such a big tier. But yeah, that's kind of how I feel about a lot of these Pokemon, though. So, and then we got Big Blissey. Blissey can absolutely eat hits. Don't hit it with a close combat in Pokemon Diamond or Pearl, because then it will take about 20 million years for its HP bar to go down. But Blissey, I've used it in a Pokemon Diamond playthrough and had so much more fun than I thought I would using a Blissey. So I'd probably put it right there next to Quagsire. I think I prefer Quagsire a tiny bit more, but Blissey, man, depending on the day you ask me, it could flip-flop. And now we have our legendary trio, the legendary dogs of Raikou, Entei, and Suicune. I think all of them are awesome, man. I'm a big fan of this legendary trio. I'm going to put all of them here in A tier, and we'll decide where we want to put them in just a second. But man, I think they're all really cool. Growing up, Raikou was always my favorite, because I always liked the electric type more, and I love the saber-tooth tiger design. I always thought the saber-tooth tiger design was so clean. And then at some point, Entei became my favorite, because, he's just this fire-type dude, and there's something about Entei that's just cool. And I think currently my favorite of the three is now actually Suicune, which is really funny that they've all flip-flopped. But I think I'd put Suicune probably right behind. I actually think this is how I would order it today. And I think they're like all like neck and neck, like super close to each other. But I think I'd prefer Suicune just a tiny bit more over Entei and Raikou, because Suicune's design is just, oh, it's so majestic, it's so cool. It's just, Suicune's awesome. And then, you know, Entei's also really cool. And it learns Sacred Fire, which is sick. And Raikou's also really cool, man. The Saber-Tooth Tiger design is still sick to this day. So I really like the what is it, the Legendary Dog trio. Even though I guess Raikou is more of a cat because it's based off a Saber-Tooth Tiger, but they're cool. I really like the Legendary trio at Johto. Up next, we have Larvitar, Pupitar, and Tyranitar. We got ourselves our pseudo legendary line. Larvitar, for me, I don't know what it is about Larvitar, but I really like Larvitar, man. Larvitar is really cool. Pupitar, on the other hand, is fine. I think it's a solid B tier Pokemon that gets to sit right in between. No, I actually like Murkrow more. So, but right ahead of Donphan and then Big Tyranitar. I mean, are you kidding me, man? This thing is awesome, dude. Tyranitar is so cool. Like, it is so cool, man. Tyranitar is just Godzilla, but Pokemon. Big Gojira. And then, of course, it has its Mega Evolution. I think the Mega Evolution is pretty solid. Not as solid. I don't actually think it's S tier, but I would probably put it ahead of Kingdra, behind Kingdra. But man, Tyranitar is awesome, dude. Growing up, it was my second favorite pseudo legendary. Is it? I don't think it's my second favorite anymore, but my favorite pseudo is Metagross, and it will always probably be Metagross. But Tyranitar was really close, and it still is kind of close. I don't think it's as close anymore, but Tyranitar is awesome. It's one of the best Johto Pokemon, and I think it's one of the better Pokemon like created like ever. So Tyranitar is awesome. That rock dark type, obviously you get hit by a fighting type, you're just donezo, no funzo. But man, just getting to set up a Sand Stream is sick, and plus it boosts your special defense in the Sand Stream. So yeah, it's cool. It's really cool. And then, last but not least, our legendaries and mythical. We have Lugia, Ho-Oh, and Celebi. And for me, Celebi, probably a B tier Pokemon. I probably prefer Pupitar and Donphan and Elekid. Probably right in front. There you go. Right in front of Porygon 2 feels right. And then, of course, our two big birds. Well, I guess more of a beluga whale and a massive bird. But these legendaries are sick, man. Like, are you kidding me? These legendaries are so cool. Not that cool, right? I think I prefer Typhlosion, and I still prefer Typhlosion, but, like, depends on the day for me. I'd probably still take Ho-Oh. Would I take Ho-Oh over Lugia? That's so tough, because, like, again, it really does prefer on what day you ask me. Ho-Oh I have really personal value to because it was the second Pokemon I ever, like, soft resetted for to get a shiny, and I got it within, like, 500 encounters. And that shiny Ho-Oh and Omega Ruby was just, it was so cool. And it has one of the coolest, like, shiny designs in the entire franchise. But then Lugia's Lugia, and Lugia is so cool. And I really like using Lugia, and I've always had fun using Lugia. And I think I have more fun using Lugia than Ho-Oh. But at the same time, it's also been forever since I used Ho-Oh. So, like, but Ho-Oh, you know, because I found the shiny one, and it's just so clean and so cool, and it's Ho-Oh, and it's awesome. But yeah, Ho-Oh is really cool. I like Ho-Oh, and I really like Lugia. I think if you ask me today, Lugia barely beats it out, but it's super duper close. So, but that's why I'm going to put both of them A tier. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. You know what? I'm going to bump both of you guys up. We're going to have a 9 and we're going to have a 10. We're going to get both of you up because I think I'll do a top 10 for the S tier. And then I'm fine with this actually being 5 in the F tier because I don't think the Pokemon in D tier deserve to go to F tier, at least for me personally. But I'm fine having a bottom 5 and a top 10. So, but yeah, I think that wraps it up for today's video. If you ended up enjoying today's video, please feel free to leave a like, subscribe to the channel, it really helps your boy out, and comment down below. Who is your favorite Generation 2 Pokemon and why? And who's your least favorite Generation 2 Pokemon and why? Or leave like a top 10 list of your favorite or your least favorite from Generation 2. I would love to know. But with that being said, I hope you all have an absolutely phenomenal rest of your day and phenomenal rest of your week. And I will catch you all in the next video. Bye bye.